And thank you very much for the opportunity of also talking a little bit about my contribution, my small contribution to, in this case, the communication of Centro de Testes de Ciências, ULisboa, so the test center of our faculty. I will talk a little bit about the first steps in the communication of this center. For those, I think someone has the mic on. If they could turn the mic off, please. And so for those of you who don't know me, I don't know if someone external to the center is here. So I'm from the communication office of the Center for Ecology, Evolution, and Environmental Changes. And in here, I was also a little bit collaborating with the Centro de Testes. So the Centro de Testes was already presented by Ricardo Dias in the beginning of this session. So I will be very brief in presenting the Centro de Testes. So it is located in the Tech Labs building at the Faculty of Sciences of the University of Lisbon. So it's located in the Innovation Center of the faculty. It is research and development infrastructure that is dedicated entirely to the mitigation of COVID-19 through screening of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and immunological tests. It is one of the faculty's investments in contributing to this national effort and big effort in fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is a result of the participation of several research centers and institutes and departments here at the faculty. It has involved, as you have mentioned before, about 50 volunteers working in the center, and more than 300 people have shown their interest and their will to collaborate here in the test center. And it has a maximum test capacity of about 400 tests per day currently. So what I will talk a little bit in this presentation is my contribution to the communication of the test center, the Centro de Testes, and presenting a brief timeline of the communication. So the first step was it starting its activity on the 1st of May. And when it started its activity around that same time, I was presented with the challenge of contributing to the communication of the test center, invited by Ricardo Dias and also by the coordination of my center. I had a first meeting where I had the opportunity to see in person the test center, become aware of the work that was done there. And as a research infrastructure that is starting, there are naturally several communication challenges, and even more so in an infrastructure that works with such a delicate issue, such as tests for a pandemic, which is caused by a virus about which we are gradually learning. And even more in a period in which we had our freedom constrained, so to speak, due to security measures that had to be taken for our health security. So I have several disclaimers during the presentation, and the first one is to say that my involvement in the communication of the test center was always in collaboration with the communication team of the faculty, and I will make reference to some names during my presentation, and that we identified some priorities and some tasks. And my goal was, or our goal was, to address them one at a time. I was not able to address them all, as I was also working in the communication of our research center, because we fortunately didn't stop, and we also reinvented ourselves, but we tried to do as much as we could do here in the communication of the test center. So our first step was to create a communication strategy and identify priorities. And some of the priorities that we identified was to inform the faculty community about the work that was being done. So the security measures that were being taken, what the volunteers were doing, because we had more than 300 people that have shown their interest in collaborating, and also to reinforce the presence on news media of the test center. So identified priorities, we started working. And the first result of the work that we did was issuing a press release and launching an institutional page about the test center on May 26th. I have to say that this was not the first press release about the test center. It was the second one because the faculty had already issued a first one in April. And I will come back to this point in a minute or so. So this was the first effort that we did. And shortly after, on the 1st of July, we launched an institutional video about the test center. It was like a presentation card of what the test center did, its main goals, what it does, where it's located, and I will also show it to you briefly. And last but not least, on August 14, we started to publish a series of interviews with volunteers of the test center, Centro de Testes of Ciências, ULisboa, to give really a face, to show the faces of the people that have been contributing with their volunteer work to the progress of this infrastructure. And it's one of the ways to recognize and to give credit also to their efforts. So focusing on these three main topics, I will start by the institutional page. We launched it on May 25, I think, because it was the day before issuing the press release. So if you go now to our website at the Faculty of Sciences, I've left here the link. You can now go to COVID-19 and check there the section Centro de Testes de Ciências. So it was launched on May, and my contribution was to work in the introduction text and identify the main information that should be present. But this was really, as I have been mentioning, a group effort, a community effort with the communication and image area of the faculty. In particular, in this case, I would like to make reference to Miguel Gonçalves, head of the communication and image area, who went to take some of the pictures that you see here on the page, to Ania Finures, also from the communication, who also took some of the pictures, and to Ana Simões, who worked also in this text. And the goal was to give an integrated view of the research and initiatives going on at the faculty with this website. And okay, before I go there, you see there the hashtag Juntos Somos Mais Fortes, which was also, as previously Ricardo and Gabriela mentioned, also the hashtag that we have adopted to communicate everything connected to the Centro de Testes, because really together we are stronger, and we want to emphasize that. So as I was saying, the goal with the institutional page and the press release was to really give an integrated view of the research and initiatives that were going on and are going on at the faculty concerning COVID-19. And here I highlight what were some news stories that were already published about the test center on the news. These ones are from April. So these ones are a result of the first press release issued by the faculty in beginning of April, prepared and issued by Ana Simões of the communication area of the faculty. And so the goal, the media already knew and the society already knew that we were going to launch a test center at the faculty. Our goal was to announce that it had already opened and how many tests were done since it started. So this was the press release, a section, it's not entirely because it would be too small, a section of the press release that was issued on May 26, a Tuesday. So Faculty Ciências ULisboa is prepared for the post-COVID-19 era. It had quotes from our subdirector, Pedro Almeida, and by the coordinator of the test center, Ricardo Dias, and the aim was to highlight the scope of the effort done by the faculty in facing COVID-19. So not only the test center, about which we gave updated information, but also other projects that are going on and about some of which you will hear during this afternoon. So for example, COVID Detect, about wastewater-based epidemiology applied to COVID-19. As a result of this press release, we did not have direct references about the center, the test center on the news, but we had some contacts by journalists interested in knowing more about these projects that were going on in the faculty, for example, COVID Detect. And as a result of those contacts, we had some mentions on news media. Also, as Ricardo Diaz already mentioned, we had an issue, a story at the Lancet Infectious Diseases scientific journal. It was entitled High COVID-19 Testing Rate in Portugal. So we were contacted by the journalists. This news story talks not only about our test center, but also about other test centers in Portugal, and really focusing on the high testing rate that is going on in Portugal. And my contribution in this case was arranging the interviews, helping the journalist also talk with some volunteers, because she was really interested in knowing a little bit more about volunteers that had a professional path that was out of the box, so to speak. Because there were volunteers that previously were flight attendants that were now unfortunately in layoff, or there's another volunteer that is studying to be a pilot, or another volunteer that is algebra professor, for example. So she really wanted to talk with them, and she included some brief quotes of them. Going on, now before I go to the video, because I would really like to have the video to conclude my presentation, I will focus on the interviews with the volunteers. Here on your left, you have the photos of volunteers, of which interviews have already been published. Our goal with publishing these interviews was really to give a face to the people that are giving their effort to the test center to progress. So what we did is we thought about some specific questions that we wanted to ask to each volunteer that accepted to participate in this series of interviews. So we asked, what does it mean for you to work at the test center? What are the main challenges of your work there? And what have you learned with this experience so far? And what are your wishes for the post-pandemic society? And last but not least, what does the term social responsibility mean to you? So we got to know a little bit more about the story and the person behind these faces, and these interviews have been published in the Faculty of Sciences website, and the texts have been prepared by Ana Simões, to whom I thank again. And so she, after we prepared together the questions for the volunteers, she's really been in charge of this project and preparing all the interviews for publishing. And as I told you, there was a third and last communication product, so to speak, which is the institutional video produced about the test center. It was produced by Ania Finuras from the communication area, together with other colleagues of the team, and my contribution was helping or contributing to the script. You will probably recognize the voice in the video. And before I show you the video, what we have presented here are the first steps in the communication of the test center. And as the test center is adapting itself to the next months, which will be tough for everyone, and in which the evolution of the pandemic will make us face further challenges, the communication will also have to adapt itself and face new requirements. So we will all work towards addressing these challenges the best way we can. So now I will show you this video, which has around 2 minutes. So stay tuned.
O Centro de Testes da Faculdade de Ciências da Universidade de Lisboa, localizado no edifício do Tech Labs, centro de inovação desta faculdade, é uma infraestrutura de investigação e desenvolvimento atualmente dedicada à mitigação da Covid-19. Este centro de testes encontra-se certificado pelo Instituto Nacional de Saúde Dr. Ricardo Jorge e licenciado pela entidade reguladora da saúde. A Faculdade de Ciências da Universidade de Lisboa foi a segunda instituição de ensino superior a obter este licenciamento. O rastreio do vírus SARS-CoV-2 e os testes imunológicos são realizados neste local com a ajuda de cerca de 50 voluntários desde 1 de maio de 2020. As suas elevadas condições de segurança representam um enorme potencial para a ciência. Neste centro, existe uma infraestrutura de contenção biológica recomendada pela Organização Mundial de Saúde e que pode ser usada no futuro em serviços à comunidade e apoio à investigação na área da saúde. O Centro de Testes representa um dos vários investimentos da Faculdade de Ciências da Universidade de Lisboa no seu contributo para o esforço nacional na luta contra a pandemia Covid-19 e resulta da participação multidisciplinar das suas várias unidades de investigação e departamentos. Porque juntos somos mesmo mais fortes.
Okay, so thank you, and I would also like to thank Ricardo Dias for the opportunity to giving my very small contribution to this great effort and great project. Pedro Almeida, Subdirector for Communication at the Faculty of Sciences, and the communication team of the faculty, Miguel, Ana, Raquel, Pedro, and Anya, and thank you all for your attention.